Hello, this is Doyle. You're listening to Spirit Talk Show, spirittalkshow.com. We are in the studio, new season, season 4, reading AI generated stories that are generated on the spot. Never to be, they've never been heard before, and hopefully they'll be heard again. This isn't the first time they'll ever be heard because I'd like to think somebody's going to listen to the podcast in the future. If you guys would like to get involved, of course, you can go to our website, spirittalkshow.com, and you can see all the information on there about the podcast and where to hear it and stuff like that. And of course, I like to have people in the studio and sometimes remotely to help me read the stories. And today I have a comedian. I'm going to let you introduce yourself a bit, but you're a comedian and an author, Shawn Wickens. Hi, Shawn.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me. Happy New Year and season 4. You're doing it.
I say, yeah,
Here we are. Yeah.
making it happen. You're
Yes.
you're going to be like you're like the third show of season 4. I mean, so I am trying to do these new experiments this year. I think my first show of season 4 was a bit of a disaster, but
It's we all learn by doing. So speaking of comedy, I've done disastrous shows too. So
like
I feel for you.
So at what point in the show, because you're doing it live and I'm not doing it live, but at what point in the show do you think, okay, this is not savable anymore? You just have to kind of go through with it.
You never know. If the first 5 minutes of a show isn't going well, you're already kind of nervous a little bit, but that's plenty of time to bring it back around. I did one show when I was in Baltimore and again, it always is worse for you than it is for the audience in some ways, but it really felt like the first 40 minutes was disastrous, and then somehow in the last 15 minutes I won them over. So you never, comedy is the analogy I use for comedy is that it's like driving with your knees, which is not something you would want to do in real life, but it's a funny way to drive. And it's, you can't grip the wheel too tightly. You always have to sort of let the car drift on its own.
What's funny, I drive with my knees all the time, and so do my dad,
Oh, yeah.
and so do my son. Okay, well, tell us about, so Chat GPT, the AI has decided that your style of comedy is known for being unconventional. Can you let us in on that a little bit?
Well, most recently I've been touring around with a show that delves into, I tell jokes, but then I also speak about some time travel theories.
Oh, yes.
So that's rather unconventional. Prior to the pandemic, I co-produced a festival here in New York called the Bad Theater Fest, which was not really celebrating bad theater, but just sort of letting people try to do stuff without the impending need for it to be good.
Okay.
Just sort of like let it happen. But I guess the unconventionalness of it is I'm kind of a storyteller, but I'm also a little bit of a absurdist comedian. A lot of times people tell me that they felt stoned listening to me talk. So that's a compliment.
So the Bad Theater Festival and the Bad Film Festival, do they know they're bad, or they think they're good and you're just saying, okay, this is terrible? But are they trying to do something good, but it's just turning out bad?
The original concept was, we told people, like, don't try to be bad. We definitely want the audience to enjoy it, but it's just sort of like free yourself from the need to be good. Just sort of like put up something that's a work in progress, like try something daring that you wouldn't have tried before. In some ways I feel like it was great because it lowered audiences' expectations, and a lot of times the audience were then in a great place to meet these weird little plays exactly where they were. Did we have bad nights? Yes. Did people walk out of things it happened occasionally. But overall, we had a lot of great
Well, great.
performances at the Bad Theater Fest.
So are you going to revive it, or is it something you're moving on to other things right now?
I think it will be revived in some way,
Hmm.
somehow. It took a break during the pandemic, but I've I still live in New York, and I've had a lot of people randomly tell me about how fun it was to be involved in that.
Oh,
So,
cool. Well,
uh, yeah,
okay.
it might have a second wind.
So tell us about your most recent book. I believe it's your most recent book is called
It's true.
The Time Machine Blueprints. And reading here in my questions. It has
Yes,
blank pages with the promise of including actual blueprints some days. You could talk
Ye-
about what the
sure.
thought process behind the book and what that was.
That's a minor spoiler, but it's I'm upfront with it, and I think on the Amazon page warn people that they will be getting a blank book with a few pages of time travel thoughts at the end.
Okay.
But the inspiration was for this was I was here at my apartment. Um, I am a bit of a stoner comedian, but I usually make weed brownies. I
Okay.
more so than smoking it. But I had made a batch of weed brownies one evening, and I was on one, maybe two. I can't
Hmm.
recall, but I was just at home by myself, listening to music, really enjoying the night, not really thinking about trying to write material, or I was just really in the moment and really enjoying
Hmm.
life. And I randomly wondered if the website timemachineblueprints.com existed, because I thought what would be there, right? So I looked in timemachineblueprints.com did not exist. So I bought the domain name,
Hmm.
kind of forgot about it. The next morning woke up, remembered, because I saw an email in my inbox congratulating me for buying the domain name Time Machine Blueprints. Blew my mind again a second time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I was like, wow, this is great. What I knew this would be useful someday,
Hmm.
maybe 100 years in the future, who knows? Um, and a few weeks went by, and I didn't really know what I would do with this website. But as somebody who had self-published books in the past, I realized I could easily self-publish a book to Amazon called Time Machine Blueprints, because I had the domain name, I was allowed to, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the joke of it is that the first edition is mostly blank pages, because that scene in Back to the Future where the
Yeah. Yeah.
photo of the siblings are slowly disappearing.
Disappearing. Yeah.
Maybe one day somebody will open up this copy, and the actual Time Machine Blueprints will slowly appear in front of them. I don't know.
Kind of
But
reverse, like people are,
yeah,
oh wow, so in the future someone is going to come back and put them in this book before you published it,
possibly,
possibly. So,
possibly.
okay,
Um,
so we have to
but I
talk.
also I also do joke that this book is infinitely usable, because anybody can put anything inside of it.
Yeah.
So and why not jot down some thoughts in a book that has the promise of something so wonderful that it says Time Machine Blueprints on the cover.
Well, yeah,
That's,
people want to use that as a journal too, and
of
so
course.
we have to talk about. You said you had some unconventional time travel type theories. We got to talk. I'm a science teacher and math teacher, computer teacher, so I can go deep with you
Okay, great.
about. I want to hear so some of your time travel theories you spoke about at the beginning.
Okay. Well, one of the first thoughts I had, and again, this was not something that I ever intended to find myself a part of. I would think
Hmm.
about physics things once in a while, but the funny thing is that once you put out a book about time travel that's mostly blank, you do start thinking about more and more things. But one of my original sort of early thoughts, and um, you know, so much is known about time travel theories just from pop culture and stuff.
Hmm.
But um, so scientifically, we can easily go to the future if we approach the speed of light. That's
Yeah.
what Einstein
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
said that, and other people have confirmed those theories for over the decades. But going backwards is impossible, so to speak,
Hmm.
or we think.
Yeah. Right now, his
Um,
current theory is our current understanding isn't. It's impossible to travel back in time. Yeah.
Right. So one of my first thoughts, and I probably was stoned when I came up with this as well, is that what if in order to travel to the past, we don't need to directly travel to our own past? What if we need to leave this dimension, go to another dimension, and then from there return to this dimension at another point in time that might be the past? So maybe that's like a way of getting around
Kind of
time travel
like
is
wormholes, like it's folded on it. It's folded on itself, and you can go through.
right,
That kind
right.
of right.
Um, so that it was one of my early theories. I now think differently about that, which we can still go into, but
Okay.
um, I don't know. Does that make you
Yeah.
think of anything? Do you want to refute that, or I don't, or
Well, okay. So
confirm it,
so
or
if we're saying it's a multiverse, right, type thing, you go to another dimension. Are we presuming this is the dimension that has the same physics limitations that we have? Because the question I'm thinking is, well, why going to the other dimension allows you to go back in time when we can't do it in this one, right? So
yeah, that I mean, I don't know. This is all just very speculative, but I mean, speaking of the multiverse, if we want to talk about that real quick,
mhm.
you know, because people are saying like, oh, there's infinite versions of you. There's um
Yeah, yeah,
and I don't think that is true. I think the multiverse is versions of you through time. If you look at your own timeline, the past, present, and the future, how many different ways can we split a second? An infinite, we can divide up a second into an infinite number of
infinitely,
smaller
yeah.
pieces. Yeah. So there are infinite versions of us, and it's just going back through time. So I think that's the multiverse.
So is time is like a physical thing, like a river that we're moving through, or is it time just something that time doesn't really exist? It's just the passage of these moments to moments.
I I think it exists. I mean, I've been reading stuff lately, and I should be better about being able to cite stuff. But
Yeah.
I guess scientists are thinking now that time is an actual particle.
Oh wow.
Uh, um, you'll have to, maybe ChatGPT will be able to sort of fact check that for us in real time.
Yeah, well, maybe
But
we could check that here.
um, the more and more I think about it, I do think that um, because I'll talk with people about the sort of like pop culture paradoxes that exist, within our understanding of time travel. And I really think that all of this, all of those things will be done away with once time travel is real, because those paradoxes exist in our mind now because we have a very primitive understanding of how time works. Once we get better about knowing the true nature of reality, I think all
Yeah.
of those paradoxical things just won't matter. What'd you find?
Well, okay. So it said ChatGPT says time is not considered a physical particle in,
Okay.
in the way that matter is composed of particles like atoms and subatomic particles, electrons,
Mm-hmm.
protons, quarks. Instead, time is a dimension. That's interesting. Use the word dimension,
Mm-hmm.
much like space. Well, space is a physical thing, right? That's weird to be
Right,
saying much
right.
like space. it it's a fundamental aspect of the fabric of the universe described by physics. Talks about relativity and time, and but it does say at the bottom here, speculation and theories. Some speculative theories in physics and cosmology explore time in unconventional ways, such as quantum gravity. In a quantum gravity or theories involving quantum time. That's interesting. What's quantum time?
Yeah.
But they remain unproven. So it says,
Right.
I mean, so ChatGPT, I don't know, but all it would do is search online. I do
Right, right.
I do have other, you know, like GPTs, other ways which are different, like ChatGPTs. Like, the worst thing ChatGPT is writes comedy routines. Like, if you ask it to
Right,
do a
right.
comedy routine, yeah, it's painful. It doesn't do it very well. But that's interesting. But like you're talking about something you read like recently.
Right, right.
So you said something earlier, like in the future when we travel in time. So you have a belief that sometime in the future we will be able to travel forward and backwards in time.
I think, yes, I think it'll happen. I think it might, you know, um, I think it might even involve, look, AI itself is a pretty incredible
Oh yeah.
invention, and it's not really the AI that were thinking about. It's sort of like an early version of AI. But I think an early version of time travel might involve some sort of being able to, using virtual reality, really augmenting, giving us an augmented version of the past,
Okay,
and
cool.
then going back to visit it that way.
So, but if we are
And
we
we might be able to only just go seconds or minutes or hours, but
yeah.
like the better that we're able to sort of um, simulate, you know, sorry, I'm
Yeah,
distracted
I'm
by
just
my little chihuahua
I know I
who
can
I don't
hear
know if you could.
I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
I'm just ask one thing. Could I go back to
Yes.
could I go back to 2010 and not sell my 200 Bitcoin that I sold? Could I please do that?
No,
That's
I don't think in the early versions of time travel you'll be able to go back and change anything, but I think you'll be able to go back and witness things and
witness my
re-witness things.
witness myself selling my 200 Bitcoin for
Yeah, yeah.
$200 and
You'll be able to stand behind yourself and scream no, but you'll still have to watch yourself do it.
there's times when I feel like I hear that though, because I'm not really a paranormal guy, but I have this
Hmm.
house, and the reason the show is called Spirit Talk Show is because it
Yeah,
started as a paranormal thing. But my
sure.
house has some weird stuff that happens, so I don't know. That seems like that could be. I remember I wrote a short story years ago that was kind of experimenting with multi dimensions and time travel and how we travel in time, and it kind of offsets those seconds in the future. So when we're off
Right.
seconds in the future, nobody's there, but we can hear an echo of the people in the actual time. And
Yeah.
it was about, so I mean, maybe, and that kind
I'm
of
not
just similar to that.
I'm not really a paranormal guy either. I'm more of just I've read about those kinds of things and
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. But I guess my biggest thing that I talk about when because I go on stage and talk about this
Yeah.
is that I think the value of talking about time travel now before the technology exists is that we might be able to nail down the ethicalness of it
Hmm.
before the technology gets here, which is something that we've never done with technology before. We look at how how social media has been sort of an accidental problem in ways,
Yeah. So, but
any
sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, just any technology that comes along, we are somehow not ready to wield it yet.
So,
Um,
but like AI, we haven't really fleshed out all the moral problems with with AI. I know of a 13-year-old son who has used AI to write essays. So I think it's become
sure.
there's a program that they use. I don't know if I should name it. Well, I'm going to. It's called Grammarly, which
Hmm.
basically is an add-on that they was sold as a help you with your grammar. But now the kids have discovered it writes papers for you, right?
Wow.
So districts are districts are blocking it because
Right,
I
right,
know my district has blocked it because it was supposed to be a grammar checker and now it's writing whole essays for kids. And
right.
you know, my kid's a smart boy like his dad, and he knows how to go on and say, "Please write me an essay like a seventh grade grader." And then he looks at it
Sure.
and says, "No, dumber, no, dumber, no, dumber," a few
That's
times
funny.
until it really writes. Because being a teacher, I'm a math and computer teacher. I
Hmm.
cannot imagine reading the writings of seventh graders on a daily basis. Can you imagine?
Right, right.
Well, we should say hi to me because he listens to this show every night, my son. So say hi to my
Hmm.
show. Say hi to my son, Finton.
Hey, Finton, is that the name?
His name is Finton.
Finton.
Yeah.
Yes. Hey, Finton. Listen to your father and your teachers.
Okay. why? Hey, why start now?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he's a great guy. So okay. Well, let's see. You know what we do on the show because we talk. I could talk to you all day. Actually, we don't even have to read stories. We can just talk about your theories too.
Sure,
Maybe we should
sure.
talk about them more. Maybe the first half is going to be hearing more of your time traveling theories. So so
I can give you a pragmatic
okay.
sort of time travel thing that I've stumbled upon.
Okay.
Um, and it's that I guess this is also sort of a philosophical thing, but what I've started to do is I've started to look back on moments in my own life that I've sort of felt alone or
Mhm.
um, defeated, just those moments where I had some sort of solitary, like, um, just anguish, or you know what I mean, any sort of problem you've had, and
Yeah.
I will in the present sort of send strength to myself in those times, and it's a promise that I've made to myself that I'll continually do. So now when I go through the present and I'm feeling one of those bad moments, I'm just telling myself, reminding myself that me in the future is doing that same thing to me in the present. So even just putting out a blank book called Time Machine Blueprints has helped me to think about things in a different way. Come here.
Okay. So great. I think that's. I guess anything that's going to help you pragmatically think about things and think about yourself and the things we. I know. Let's go get your dog, and I'll talk about the next part we're going to talk about because briefly, let's talk about your another book that has a lot of buzz on the internet. Your book called "How to Lose Your Virginity and How Not to." And
Sure.
so, am I understanding this correctly? That this is a collection of people's stories of their first times.
That's
That
correct.
you went around and collected around the country, or did you collect in from friends and family?
I started with a few friends, no, but over a few years, I gave myself the goal of interviewing 1,000 people.
Wow.
Just because I figured, well, that would be, a pretty great sample size. But also being a fan of Bruce Lee, he has a quote: "I fear not the man who has practiced 1,000 kicks. I fear the man who has practiced one kick 1,000 times."
That's funny.
Um, so I was like, all right, 1,000, that's a pretty good number. Um, and that is that was my introduction into self-publishing. But when I was in college, I worked for a uh, film festival in Cleveland, and I saw a film about it was a German film about a young woman who was on her quest to lose her virginity,
Yeah.
and it was a great film. And I went to the after party. I don't think the filmmakers were there, but it was just everyone else who had seen the film. And I just started asking people how they lost their virginity. And I couldn't believe how open people were with that very private moment to a complete stranger. Obviously, we had the same shared experience of coming
Yeah.
out of a film that covered that. But from there, I just took a tape recorder and I just went around. I started, introducing myself to people, interviewing people, and then the book is just a collection of the interesting stories. My thesis statement was that not everyone's first time is awkward or horrible, and
Hmm.
certainly I did hear a few of those, but I also heard some really lovely stories as well.
So, is there a commonality? Like, is there a common way that people first? Well, first of all, I wanted to ask you: is what's the definition of losing your virginity? Is any sexual contact losing your virginity? Like, if when you're 14, you do some stuff that isn't penetration. Is that
Right.
considered? Is that losing your virginity, or like like gay people? When did like is it different for them? Like, do you have criteria?
Yeah. Well, as art is in the eye of the beholder, I left that definition up to the people who were sharing that story.
Okay.
Um, but I did hear a lot of, uh, I guess really the commonality thing was that men were kind of ashamed of their first time. Um,
Hmm.
but women were sort of, if they had a positive experience, it was nothing shameful.
Oh,
Um,
that's funny because in culture, I talk about the woman who sleeps around a lot. People, I'm not saying I believe this at all, but back in the
sure.
'80s, the woman who slept around a lot was the slut, but the man was the hero. And
Right,
it's
right.
funny that maybe the women saved it for the special person. So that's interesting. Well, I mean, just because if I was asked that like that quick question, it'd be hard to answer. Like, well, which one was my first time?
Right, right.
So I guess it'd be, as you said, it would be up to me too. So, you've done you travel around and perform at colleges, something called varsity. Is that what it's called?
I used to be on a improv team called the name of the team was Junior Varsity.
So you're,
That was the name of our ensemble. Yeah.
junior varsity, is that a sports reference? Because I know there's a comedy improv group in San Jose called Comedy Sports, and
Hmm.
they do it like a sports competition. They come up and they compete against each other. So is varsity is that a sports reference?
No, I think it was we came together. It was a bunch of friends. We came together at a bar, and somebody just threw that out as a possible name, and it kind
Okay,
of stuck. Um, I think the joke of it is that none of us were really athletes.
okay,
We were kind of artists and comedians and theater people, so it was sort of like a, you know, we're sort of the second string. I
sure.
maybe in some ways it helped inspire the bad theater fest
Well, maybe.
uh
Hmm.
sort of off ramp I eventually took. You know what I mean? It was sort of an inside joke of we're not that great. We're
Well,
not the A list, you know.
it's the self deprivation that is common,
Yeah.
and I'm from Ireland, of course, and that's common over
Hmm.
there to put yourself down. I'm sure you know a few Irish people in New York. Can you believe
Sure.
that we're at 26 minutes and 10 seconds? We're 50 seconds before the end of the break here. So I promise when we come back, we should probably read some stories since
We
that's
will.
what we do. But any uh, any 30-second thoughts before we go off for the break?
Um when we come back, I will share some time travel stuff that will blow your mind.
Oh wow, I'm excited about
I
that.
think.
Well,
Yeah.
okay. Um, well, great. Well, we will take a break in here in a few seconds. If you guys would like to get involved, you can go to spirittalkshow.com. All the information is there about where you can find us on all the podcast services, all the typical ones. Of course, you can hear us on KBOO, Sacramento 96.5 is where you can listen and come back after this break. We'll hear some more time traveling theories with Shawn.